game week 2 in the Championship for Boro and our first away trip of the season, and perhaps already one of the toughest. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Project Boro preview show, where we of course look ahead and preview every single Boro game in the Championship. And today we are looking ahead to Boro's trip to the Den, and that is of course down to Millwall, which is going to be, I think, an extremely difficult trip for Boro. I think Millwall is a difficult trip at the best of times, but I think at the moment, with all the, I'd say, optimism there, a lot of people are backing Millwall. A lot of people have a good feeling about Millwall, and rightfully so. I do too. I've got them as one of my real dark horses for playoffs this season. So I think paired that with just it being the Den, it being a tough place to go, and it being their first home game of the season, honestly, it probably couldn't have lined up as a tougher test for Boro. I guess on the other hand, if they are to be a top side Millwall, this could be a good time to play them and get that game out the way. But honestly, from their pre-season and their opening weekend win at Norwich, they seem like they're in pretty good nick already as it is. So this will be an absolutely huge test for Boro and Rob Edwards early doors. So as always, we're going to look at their recent form, which mostly is, of course, just the opening game of the weekend and maybe a bit of pre-season as well. We'll look at some of their better players and, of course, predict the Boro 11 before predicting the result. Now, as I said, I think this will be the biggest test for Rob Edwards, and it's easy to say the biggest test so far, but including pre-season, including everything else that's came, this is a huge, huge test for him and his Boro side. We are a side that, of course, are wanting to be a little bit more physical, a little bit more direct. We're probably leaning a little bit more into the strengths of what Millwall are really, really good at. So I don't know if we're going to be going toe-to-toe with Millwall. I don't know if we're going to be trying to go head on into a physical battle with them, or if that's even a good idea. But I do think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic to see how this Boro side fares up against Millwall compared to Millwall sides of the past and Boro sides of the past as well, when we were maybe a little bit prettier, a little bit more of a ball-playing side. But before we look into Boro's team and what that might entail, let's take a look at Millwall then, because they are, like I say, one of the most fancied sides, I'd say, in the Championship. And it's not even for me that they are an underdog at this point. We always sort of predict that they'll be mid-table. They always inevitably find their way upwards towards the playoffs and then have a right good goal, get really close and just fall short at the end. This season, I don't think it will be like that. I think they are a bona fide playoff contender this season. I don't think there's any underdog about it. I think they will be up there. They will be up there rightfully, and they will give the playoffs a really, really good go. I think they've not only got a very, very good team as it is, a very solid team, a very effective team, with Alex Neil getting the absolute most out of them. I think what they've added this summer especially has just made them even better. And what I like about Millwall is they recruit to their strengths. They have an identity, a clear identity, and they're just adding players that benefit that more and more, paired with just having a great manager in Alex Neil. Now, I don't know, I'm not 100% familiar with Millwall's pre-season. There might have been other games behind closed doors or other games that weren't mentioned on their website, so correct me if I'm wrong, Millwall fans. But I know results in pre-season don't mean everything, not the be-all and end-all, but what I did notice was they won a lot of their pre-season games. I think they won around 5 of their 7 pre-season games, did Millwall. They beat Northampton. They went away and beat Wimbledon. They beat Bromley. They battered another side, Sutton United, I think it was, before finishing with a win against a side in, is it one of the Spanish leagues? It may have been one of the Spanish leagues. GD Estoril Praia? I don't know. Maybe they're a Portuguese team, a Spanish team, I'm not sure. But Millwall had a very, very good pre-season and a good summer in terms of both on and off the field. Some of the players they brought in were great. They got a lot of good results pre-season, and although they don't matter all that much, as Rob Edwards has mentioned, from a Boro point of view, it does create that winning mentality. It does breed confidence, and that's exactly what they carried into the season, because of course they went and beat Norwich last week, which was a very, very impressive start. Not many teams, I think, will go to Carrow Road and get a result like that this season. It was a very impressive display by Millwall. Both goals were different, and I think one especially is definitely a reason to be concerned from a Boro point of view. The only goal they gave up on the day was down to a defensive error when Josh Sargent closed down the goalkeeper, so that's a mistake they will hope to not make again. But the opening goal did come from a cross. Crammer down the right-hand side crossed it to Negley, I believe, who finished on the left-hand side. That could possibly be averted and avoided from a Boro point of view, but the one big thing that I saw that worried me was their second goal. Playing in Macaulay Longstaff in behind, he's got pace, he finished his chance really, really well. That's where I think Boro might struggle a little bit, because I'm going to be honest, before we obviously look at their team a little bit later, Millwall are an incredibly physical side. You know, Josh Coburn, who we know all about, has gone there. He's a huge, big physical centre forward. Ivanovic as well, another big presence up top. I do think the way Boro are set up under Edwards will be more suited to deal with that, with the three centre-halves. Dale Fry's fantastic in the air. Alfie Jones is great in a physical challenge. If Luke Ayling's there as well, he might be able to do okay in that situation. So I'm more confident that Boro can deal with the physical threats of Millwall's top front lads, but I am concerned about the pace, because the one thing I don't think Boro's defence has got, albeit the three of them are very physical, big, tall centre-halves, I don't think they've got the pace. And when I saw their winning goal and I saw Macaulay Longstaff running in behind, I just thought that is a huge, huge area Boro are going to have to be very, very wary of. We play a high line, of course, under Rob Edwards, and if they don't start with Macaulay Longstaff like they did at the end of last season, they could certainly bring him on as an option, and I think he could give us a real issue. I mean, he did that last season, caused our defenders all sorts of problems that day, and the whole game just went completely out of our control, and we were all at sea in the second half of that one. So I do worry them options that Millwall have could really, really affect our back three. And they've got the options, you know, they've got the physical options, they've got the pace on the bench if need be as well. They've just got fantastic options to do and hurt you in different ways, have Millwall, and that's not even really considering Aziz down one side, Negley down the other. They are definitely a side, I think, who have been built quite well over time and are now at the point where they are a serious, serious threat to be considered and no longer an underdog, you could say. So with their starting 11, FootMob got it wrong. They've had an absolute nightmare the first weekend of the season, but as you can see, if you swap Doughty and Tanganga around, I think that's pretty much the 11 that they went with. Of course, as you all know, big fan of Alfie Doughty. I think he's an outstanding signing that they've made. Fits perfectly into their style of play. A great crosser of the ball, great from dead balls and free kicks. If he's pinging them into Josh Coburn, into Ivanovic, they're going to absolutely feast off of his quality from them situations and them wide areas. So he's a fantastic signing. Tanganga, I do think, is one of the better centre-halves in this entire league. I think he was an outstanding find for them and a perfect centre-half. Jake Cooper as well, another big lad at the back. As we saw again against Swansea, Boro only really have Tommy Conway up front, and I don't think he won a single aerial duel up against their back four, or their centre back. So I do worry that even though we might be able to deal with their physical presence in terms of their attack and our defence, I'm not too sure we'll be able to get the better of their defenders with our attackers up front. If we play in front of Millwall's back four, I don't think we'll get much joy at all. If we're going to hurt them, we need to try and get in behind them, which I didn't see us doing all that much against Swansea. And if Tommy Conway struggled up against Swansea's back line, who were a big defence, I don't think he's going to have too much joy up against Tanganga and Cooper either. If we're going to try and ping the ball up to him and expect him to hold it up, then we may as well not bother, if I'm honest. We need to somehow try and get the 10s running the channels, getting in behind, getting Tommy Conway in behind and trying to hurt Millwall that way, because if we try and match them up top, playing the aerial balls up to Conway, play in front of them, I think they'll just sit there and absolutely eat everything up. So that's how I would tackle their defence if we're going to get any joy from that. I think the midfield battle will be interesting. I do think Boro, if we've got Hackney and Morris, can have some joy there. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm not too bothered about us dealing with the physicality of their forwards, but Coburn and Ivanovic, a very, very good pair up front It's the pace down the sides that do concern me a little bit. And that gets me on to Boro's 11 now. A lot can change. I'm recording this on Tuesday, so we don't even have the cup games yet. Players who I've mentioned might get injured. A lot of transfer activity could happen between now and then. I've simply gone for an unchanged side because I just don't see what else Boro can do at the moment, if I'm absolutely honest. You could bring Borges in as a centre-half, but again, why would you do that? You'd want to go with the three most physical centre-halves we've got, and I think that's Jones, Fry and Luke Ayling. There are no other wing-back options. Callum Britton and Silvera will probably remain unless a wing-back comes in this week, which may happen. Hackney and Morris will be in midfield, hopefully, unless Hackney moves, which I can't see happening as yet. And there are talks that Finn Azaz will be back this weekend. I think he'll be back in the squad. We might see him on the bench. I think it's likely going to be Bergzorg and Morgan Whittaker, if I'm honest once again, with Tommy Conway up front, who is literally the only real attacking option that we have. So, yeah, that starting 11 up against Millwall's, I don't quite know how I feel about it, to be honest. I think just watching back the Swansea game, we are going to have to change the way we play, I feel. We have to try and get the wing-backs down the sides, try and get Conway in beyond their centre-halves and try and hurt them that way. If we keep playing long balls up to him, as I say, we're going to get no joy at all. It's going to be an interesting game. It really, really is. So that's the Boro 11. That's their 11, the players I like, where I think the game could be won and lost. We'll take a quick look at the head-to-head. It's actually quite even, to be fair. In the last sort of 20-plus meetings, it's rather even. Boro have 11 wins to Millwall's 10, with 6 draws in the middle. It was a win apiece last season, both 1-0 at our respective home grounds. Boro did win 3-1 back at Millwall in January of 2024, but they also then won at the Riverside in the August, on the opening day of that season, of course. So we seem to split results. You know, if we draw the first game, we'll draw the second. If they beat us in the first, we'll beat them in the second, yada, yada, yada. So we'll see what happens. It's a tough one to call, but I do feel like just the timing of it, opening home game for Millwall at the Den, in a crowd that I'm sure will be filled with a lot of optimism this season, with Boro and our position, needing bodies, needing signings, new manager, I don't think we could be going into many tougher fixtures, if I'm honest, at this moment in time. As I say, Millwall are a team I massively, massively fancy, and this could be difficult. This really, really could. So, my prediction. As you remember, in our Project Boro podcast we did a week or so ago, when we, of course, previewed the first 4 games and predicted the first 4 games, I did say that Boro would not get anything from this game. And unfortunately, even with the positive result on the opening day, I don't think my mind has changed. If we can come out of Millwall with anything, I'll be absolutely delighted. If we get out of this with a point, I'll be over the moon. 4 points from the opening 2, an away trip to Millwall, bringing something back at this stage of the season with so much still to do, so much work to do, so many bodies needed at Boro. I'd snap your hand off, if I'm absolutely honest. And I don't think Millwall should be underestimated. A point for us could look like an outstanding result by the end of the season if they are to be the playoff chasing side that we sort of expect them to be. I just worry that even in the first half, it could be a bit of a tight tussle, a bit like Swansea. It could be a bit of a cagey back and forth game. I think we'll probably deal with their physical players. Hopefully, down the sides, we can deal with their wingers. I do worry whether it's Negley or Aziz. They might be able to target Sammy Silvera down the left-hand side, who wasn't the best defensively against Swansea. They might get a bit of joy. Our centre-backs might have to do a really good job at defending our box at times in the first half. I just worry if they make the changes, if they bring on Macaulay Longstaff, if they add a bit of pace in maybe the second half, I can see that really, really turning us over and getting our centre-backs running the other way and giving them some real joy. And then on the other hand, I just don't see how Boro hurt this team, this Millwall team. Maybe set pieces will be our joy once again, but again, they're a really physical side. They might be a match for us in that department. I just feel like we're going to have to show a different way of attacking and hurting this Millwall side, because if we, keep trying to play it long forward, very vertical, like we were against Swansea, I think Tommy Conway will be marked out the game. He won't get many touches, he won't have much of an influence, and we won't get much joy offensively. We need Whittaker, Bergzorg, get in behind, get down the channels, get Conway spinning in behind. Fingers crossed we'll hurt them that way, because if we make it a physical battle up top, we ain't going to come out on top of that at all. So my prediction, I'm going to go 1-0 Millwall. I'm sorry to say, as I say, I think it will be 0-0 at half time, a physical tussle between two sides. They'll bring on a bit of pace second half. That'll be the difference, and I think they'll nick it by 1-0. I'm afraid to say, if it's any better, any different, we come away with a point, I'll be over the moon, and I will be happily proven wrong when I come back and review this game on Saturday night. But until then, guys, thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section below. If there's any Millwall fans, let me know yours in the comments also. And if you've enjoyed the video, a like on the video, subscribe for much more. We, of course, do previews and reviews of every single Boro game in the Championship, of course. And do leave me a comment in the section below, as I say, with your thoughts. And if you'd rather listen to these on the go, you can do via the link tree in the description, where you, of course, can go and listen to this on your chosen podcast provider. And I will be back later in the week. We'll probably do a full-on prediction video of all the Championship fixtures this weekend, and we'll then, of course, be back on Saturday to review whatever the hell happens at the Den. I hope I'm wrong, and I pray we come back with something. But until then, take care, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.